And welcome to another edition of Quoth the Raven, Lewis Bright Raven. I am your host, Lewis Bright Raven.
Hello.
You there, Michael? You hear me, Michael?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. My guest tonight is Michael L. Peters. He'll be on in just a moment. I just haven't got you on the screen yet. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm shutting down some stuff on my computers because I was thinking maybe it was hogging my Wi-Fi or something.
Okay. Alrighty. All right. Hello, John Norris. Nice to see you. And this is episode 9 or 11, depending on who you ask, of Quoth the Raven. And tonight's episode is...
You there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Tonight's episode is Hey Chicken Little, Keep Calm and Read Comics. And we'll show you again that little thing tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about DC's $7.99 line and how the comics media is reacting.
You're frozen. I don't see you at all. I mean, I see you, but you're frozen. I can't hear you.
Okay.
Are you there?
Yeah. Okay. Hold on a second, Michael. Yeah, he's getting a little bit frustrated here. Hold on a second. Let me get him. He dropped out again. He'll be back in a second. It's his tech. He's got he's doing it by phone instead of a computer, and it's a little bit difficult to work it that way. A little bit, we've learned, but hopefully he'll be on here.
Sorry about that. Stopped out, I guess.
Yeah, it's the phone. It happens. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not your fault. It's StreamYard doesn't like phones, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, welcome to the show, Michael.
Well,
and, yes, you're here. you're being seen. And we're gonna do a quick change over here real quick. And Michael is our special guest tonight. He's the creator of Crescent City Magic, and he's been an artist for Heavy Metal Magazine, Negative Burn Comics from Cavalier Press, and he is the creator of his own comic book series, Crescent City Magic, which we're going to show a little bit. And we're also going to talk about his second edition, which is in the process of being produced, and some other issues that we creators face, that Michael is facing right now. So welcome again to the show, Michael.
Well,
yeah, you still there?
Oh,
yeah, there it is. There's a copy of Crescent City Magic.
Yep.
Go ahead and tell us a little bit about the book, Michael.
Well, it's I got the inspiration for it back in the late '90s when I lived in New Orleans for a little while. You there?
Yeah, what I did is I dropped out to give you a little bit of
Okay.
But I'm here.
Did you get that?
Yes, I hear you.
I was in New Orleans for a little while in the '90s, and it was such an interesting place that I knew I had to use it somehow. And then I thought up this story, and it was the perfect setting for it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's set in New Orleans, and she's a witch, and it's just a story of, basically she's the main character. There are other characters, like there's a male character who sort of is the viewpoint character in the first book, but he's to introduce her, but he's a main character too. I mean, there's several main characters, all friends.
What are their names?
And, his name is Clayton. Her name is Julia.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also Bev and a few other characters. Mm-hmm. She's basically a witch who lives in New Orleans. She sort of ran away there when she was younger, and but she's sort of living in an old abandoned warehouse that's sort of squatting. But she's getting along just fine because she's got magic powers and stuff. So it's not something I would advise anybody without magic powers to do.
Mm-hmm. When you say magic powers, do you mean like inerrant magical powers, or is she more like a voodoo practitioner or some sort of thing? Since voodoo is in New Orleans,
she practices an eclectic sort of mix of some of it's sort of Celtic magic. She's not actually from New Orleans. She's just because that was one thing when I was there that I noticed was that about half of the people there weren't from there. Because it's one of those cities that kind of attracts everybody. That
Oh, he froze.
You there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You froze camera-wise.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Your camera froze. Are you there? Yep, he dropped out again. We'll be right back with him. In the meantime, let me go ahead and answer some questions if I can. I know there's going to be some as soon as he's back in. Okay, I'm going to do a quick thing here. Are we going to do you do a one-man jam piece on the show, or see you draw it all on the regular show? Because drawing videos you don't talk about it in the podcast, you don't draw. Quickly, yes, I will be there doing that soon. So we're going to get right back to Michael again. Sorry about that, Michael.
This thing really doesn't like phones, does it?
No, it doesn't seem to. I think I remember one other person on a different podcast that was having similar issues. And ironically, he's from Michigan too. I think I remember one other person on a different. Okay, dropped again. But to answer the earlier question about the one-man jam, yes, I'm going to do the one-man jams on video probably after Thanksgiving. Let's see. Wrong thing. Next question is, have you seen the meme going around, you're in charge of DC Comics, what would you do? Well, what would you do? That's something we're going to discuss a little bit later in the show, depending on what's going on with Michael and him trying to get in with the phone. We really want to get him first, and I'll explain why in a little bit. If he doesn't come on, isn't able to come back for some reason, I'll discuss it a little bit and explain the situation for him, because it's very important. And let's see. Our next question is, are you a Baltimore Ravens fan? From Brandon. Kind of, sort of, yes. I'm kind of not really an NFL guy these days, but I was an original fan of when the Browns, before they moved to Baltimore, and I stuck with them a little bit because, hey, it's my namesake. So yeah, I follow them a little bit, but I'm not a huge NFL guy. If they happen to be doing really well, which they are this year, fine. But I'm just not that hardcore on NFL in general. Next question. If I can get this silly thing to do what it needs to do. Are you ever going to draw a straight up Larry Livewire sketch? You did the Space Sea Alien live draw, but you forgot to do Larry. I was interested in hearing the backstory of that from Debbie in Michigan. Yeah, I'll be doing that later. Not probably again after Thanksgiving. Michael is back, I hope.
Yeah, for now.
Yeah, let's try again. We were talking a little more about Julia's background, and nope, it froze on you again.
Are you there?
Yeah, it froze on you again. Are you a Baltimore Ravens fan? Yeah, you need a camera for your computer. Can you hear me? I don't know. I see you there. I don't hear any sound. Are you there? Now I got, oh, no, it dropped out again. Oh, darn. Should have done this a little bit earlier and checked with him to make sure it was going to work. I tried to, but he's like, well, it'll work. But anyway, we'll go quickly through the rest of the questions. Again, back to the Larry Livewire sketch. Yeah, I will do a live draw of him. I just haven't had a chance to get back to it. I mean, I will give a backstory on that character. The next question is from Anonymous, and it's, why don't you just do normal weekly reviews of whatever you buy on a weekly basis? I mean, you do these theme shows, and it sometimes seems like you are out of touch with what is coming out currently because you talk about old books. The reason I don't talk about the books I get on a week-to-week basis is primarily because it would be a very limited repeat type thing where I would be talking about the same comics all the time. And I don't really want to do that. So I try to do things to more of a thematic structure to give a more diverse range, to let audiences know that there is a lot of stuff to be there, to have offered out there in our medium. But if fans who have watched in the past want me to talk about more about the issues as they come out and discuss it more, I can do that in the future. How about this time?
I can see you. I don't know if you can see me yet. Can you?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a frustrating thing, isn't it? It froze again.
Hello? Can you?
I can hear you, but I can't see you. Oh dear. Well, this is going to be on the record as one of my lesser episodes. Unfortunately, not Michael's fault. It's technology. I don't know. I don't know how old his phone is. StreamYard just doesn't seem to like the phone very well for him. I'm gonna quick ask him something. I moved the camera a little bit. Sorry about that. Had to change things so I could get into seeing something. But yeah, that was back to the question. That was the main reason I don't do that. So if you have other questions for me, you can email them to Quoth the Raven, lbr72@gmail.com, subject QTR questions. Please indicate whether you want your name and locale read on air. Michael's going to join us in the chat room instead because the StreamYard and his phone just aren't cooperating, unfortunately. And it's a shame, but he is here. So we're going to do our best to continue to discuss it. We were talking about Julia and your background with New Orleans and how you had noticed how most of the people there weren't from. Let's see if he's still there. Are you there? Yeah, it just keeps freezing on you.
Can you see me?
I see a frozen picture. It stopped frozen. Now you're live again. I think StreamYard just doesn't like Android phones. I really do.
Looks like this thing only seems to want to work for a second or two at a time. I don't know if you can hear me at all.
I can.
But
just go ahead and stay in the
StreamYard thing doesn't like my phone very much, I guess.
Yeah, just go ahead and go to the chat room and answer questions through the chat. We're going to go ahead and talk about his stuff a little bit more in just a moment. I need to go back to that a little quick here. All right. Again, our guest tonight is Michael L. Peters, artist for heavy metal, Negative Burn, and creator of Crescent City Magic. Hopefully he'll be joining us over in the, he says, let me see if I can share that. Trying to share the thing and it isn't letting me share it. Here we go. Yeah, he keeps trying to use the, use his phone for the connection for StreamYard and it just lasts maybe 2 seconds and cuts out again. And I think that's just a technical situation. And it's not your fault, Mike. And I'm sorry about that. I wish we had time to check it out beforehand to make sure ahead of time. I would have done things a little bit differently. That being said, again, we were talking about your characters, Julia, and how he's trying again. Hey, Mike, you trying again?
Yeah, I'm trying again. I don't know if it's going to work.
Well, how about this? How about you just stick in the chat over there on YouTube, and I'll post your answers on the screen.
Okay.
Because that way you're not cutting in and out and stuff, and we can just post them up on the screen that way. Because people know you're here,
right?
That you're real. You know, I'm not just making up answers. So,
right, they saw me frozen for a few seconds here and there. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's do it that way.
Want me to just close this?
Yeah, go ahead and close it down. That way you can focus on your laptop. Okay. Now, again, we're going to try and do it so that, tell us more about the whole situation with New Orleans and how that inspired you again. It's all fine. It's all right, Michael. It's not your fault. I should have checked it out a little bit better before the show. I'll know in the future. We all learn, ladies and gentlemen. We all learn. So, again, Crescent City Magic is about a young woman named Julia, who's a Celtic witch, and she lives in New Orleans. And as Michael was saying before, he kept cutting out. Used to live in New Orleans, and he noticed that a lot of people, as New Orleans is a port city. Here we go. He lived in New Orleans and worked there in a comic shop for a few months, and it was an interesting place that became what he felt was an ideal setting for the show, or for the comic rather. What is there some sort of like anti-magic thing going on in the comics? I mean, what is the I guess you could say the dilemma that the characters are facing in the first issue or first book? Because the first book is actually a graphic novel, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. And who else is watching tonight? We have 3 live viewers. I know John Norris was here. Who else is here? We're waiting as Michael types up answers. I know that's a little bit hard to do. I apologize to the audience for that. Again, technical difficulties. John Norris says, I have visited New Orleans and it is indeed a fascinating city. We're going to do a little more sharing of I'm hoping I can do this. I'm trying to share a screen here if I can. Let's just see if I can figure out how to do this. Here we go. While we're waiting on Michael, this is his website. And you can go to this website. It is The Art of Michael L. Peters at mlpeters.com. As you can see, I'm going to show you a little bit more of his work. We're going to go straight to the graphic novel so that you guys can see a little bit more of the artwork. Yes. Okay, here we go. Here's some answers for what the book's about. Clayton Woods arrives in New Orleans on the run from forces he doesn't understand, and he's found by Julia, who is convinced Clayton is a hero. Clayton suspects that Julia may be crazy. What we're showing you is the first book here, and again, I believe there's some other pages I can show possibly. Hold on a second. The second book, which is what he's working on now, is it's partly Julia's origin story. Mm-hmm. As you can see, is that the correct Amazon address? HTT MyBookDo CCM V1. Mm-hmm. Michael. Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. Okay. Mm-hmm. So that's where you guys can go to check it out on Amazon and see a little bit more about it. Let me see if I can quickly go to the link. Okay. Yes. All right. I'm going to see what I can do to drop that one real quick and share the other one. It's always kind of funny when they're wanting to share different things on StreamYard. You can't share multiple screens at the same time, unfortunately. Let's see. This is where you can go. This is what it looks like, so you know what you're looking at. I guess this is the one that has a paperback edition that is used and new in stock. Is this also the one that is the Amazon address is correct. The MyBook link simplifies for whatever country you're trying to reach it from for the different versions of Amazon, which is cool. The reason I was wondering, no, this is a print-on-demand book through Amazon. Is that not correct? Mm-hmm. I believe that's why you can buy new at $11.95 or used a little bit. It does say for it that they have a few in stock that were used. They got 4 new in stock from $11.95 and 4 used from $6.48, but there's probably a little bit more. I don't know what else they have on that. Mm-hmm. And it's also available in Kindle, Amazon Kindle, I believe, in 4 issues as well. So let's see. So yes, I'm assuming that yes that means that yes, that is the print on demand as well. So but this is where you go to get the print on demand or get it used either way. Mm-hmm. So we're going to go back to that, and I will go into the chat. Go ahead and, in fact, I'll do that a little bit here. Let me see here. And they can also buy, okay. People can also buy directly through his ML Peters website if they want a signed copy as well, which is a good idea. In fact, Mike would probably appreciate that given the circumstances, and we'll get to his circumstances in just a little bit. But I want to go ahead and post the links. HTTPS mlpeters.com is his main website. We will go ahead and reshare that screen in just a second. And that is what that site looks like when you go to it. And I will show you again. He has a Patreon site that is linked there that you should probably visit as well. Let's see. He's got original art for sale. Let's see what he's got. He's got Harley Quinn there. Well, that one was sold. Let's see what's. Most of the only one I don't. Okay, the rest of them are all sold right now. But well, here's a good one. Thor. Rocket, Groot, and Howard the Duck. A lot of these have been selling apparently for you, and that's good. But the reason that part of the reason I brought Michael on tonight is because Michael's been having some issues. His house, particularly his roof, has suffered some major damage, and he needs to get it repaired. And unfortunately, because of circumstances beyond his control, he doesn't have the insurance to cover it. So he's been doing a GoFundMe and a Patreon account to try and help set that up. Tell us a little bit more about that situation, if you can, Michael. And I'll keep showing a little bit more of your art so that people can see what you've got. Mm-hmm. And you can reach him also at mlpetersartist@yahoo.com or mlpetersartist@gmail.com. And I'll go ahead and put that up there in my basically he's saying his roof is basically caving in. Not good. The roof is water damaged and warped. Go ahead and show me, link me your GoFundMe page. I don't have the link to that, Michael. That way I can go to that page and show everybody the kind of damage we're talking about. You can either link me that live here on. In fact, I would recommend linking it in the chat so that people can see it, so they can go to the page themselves. Mm-hmm. And in the meantime, I will go ahead and continue to share some of the artwork here on Michael's page. Convention sketches. Give you an idea. For those of you who are looking at his artwork, yes, he's very influenced by a very popular comics artist named Barry Winter Smith. He's also influenced by quite a few others, I'm pretty sure. He can talk about that in a little bit more. This is James Bond, Sean Connery, Aquaman, Solomon Kane versus some zombies, and an angel. I'm going through them a little bit too quick, so I'm going to hold on to this back and go back a little bit for you. Again, you can also go to mlpeters.com and view these on your own. Here is Morpheus, or also known as the Sandman from DC Comics. Medusa. Yes, Barry Windsor Smith, Bernie Wrightson, Mike Kaluta, John Toddleben, and a billion other artistic influences, which is true of any artist, really. I think anybody who's in our field really should be influenced by anything and everything we see. Let's see here. Still looking for your GoFundMe page, Michael. Because I want to show people the damage to the roof, if I can. He's also influenced, or he says, I'm also influenced by a lot of really old pen and ink artists who worked before comics were around. Franklin Booth, J.C. Call, etc. Yes, that is traditional classic illustration artists, which is a good thing as well for artists. It gives Michael a unique look that takes him apart, or not takes him apart, but sets him apart from a lot of the more modern artists that are more, shall we say, all in the same wheelhouse of artistic design. Sorry about that. I got cut out there that minute. I'll be right back with the sharing of the screen. There we go. I don't know how that. It's one of those things. It's just not a good night tonight. Let me see if I can get. The links aren't getting through. I guess. I got your posts for Barry Windsor Smith and the other influences, but I didn't get links. Yeah, he says he keeps trying to share the links in chat. It's not letting him. Go ahead and share me the links in here in Facebook, and I'll see what I can do to post them up. A little bit more of Michael's artwork, as you can see. He's a very nice artist. Okay. Let me see what I can do here. Okay, we're going to take a break for just a second from his MLB, and go to his fundraiser page in just a second. Here we go. Now you can see the kind of damage we're talking about. This is his roof. I'll see what I can do to get a little bit closer pictures. And yes, that is snow on in the photos, because he's living in Michigan, which, as you know, gets some pretty crazy winter weather. And let's see here. You know, is this a roof off of a what kind of home is it? I mean, is it a trailer home? Is it a regular home type situation? As you can see, he raked snow off the roof, especially where spots. It is a mobile home, okay? So it's a mobile home, so that's even the snow is worse now, but it's going to warm up next week a little bit. So, yes, this needs to get done. It's kind of an emergency for his situation, and part of the reason I brought him on was to try and get awareness of this from our viewers, so that they might either go on his website, mlpeters.com, or go here to the GoFundMe page, which I will post a link to the GoFundMe in just a second. Let me see if I can do that real quick. In here. Did that actually show? Yes, it did. There we go. So you got your GoFundMe link there in the actual chat now, so you guys can go there. That worked. I don't know why it didn't work for Michael, but it didn't. Glad to see that worked. And, so it is a trailer mobile home. And some people might be asking a question like, well, why don't you have homeowners insurance or something to that effect? Michael says he talked to a roofer earlier tonight. With luck, maybe he can get started next week if we can get some funds raised. I know he's got some. I think you got about what, $2,300 maybe raised out of how much is it going to cost? But then, as I was saying, some people might be asking the question, well, why doesn't he just go to homeowners insurance? And the reason why is the home was in his mother's name, and his mother passed, and through whatever reasons, the state hasn't had time, or the state won't let him transfer the mobile home into his name yet. And then, of course, if you don't have it in your name, right, the place is still in his mother's name. He inherited it from her, and but it is where he lives. And as long as it's in his mother's name, he can't insure it until it's in his name. And that can be problematic, and with all the legal mumbo jumbo going on with the state. Mm-hmm. That's why he doesn't have the homeowner's insurance, and why he needs to raise the funds. enjoy the milkshake. Have you read College Buddies by Nicholas Sequeira? I don't think so, off the top of my head. Not sure who Current News or Enjoy the Milkshake are. I'm off the head. I'm not familiar with that one off the top of my head. Michael says he has a grand saved up to go with the money raised. I really don't know what this is all about offhand, so I'm not sure what that was all about. I've never had anyone come in and do that before. Yeah, sorry about that, folks. I think it's kind of weird. That seemed like a trolling situation. I had to take care of that. Let's go back to the pictures here from his GoFundMe page. Did you rake it off or did you shovel it off? You did say it was more of a light thing, but yeah. But anyway, this is a situation that we're trying to get the thing up there, and he has had some. He said 38 donors. There's been 2,500 raised of a $6,000 goal, a little over 2,500, and he's got another 1,000 to go. He said he could add to his with the money he's raised. Again, okay, raked with a roof rake. Okay. Hold on a second. Hello, Nicholas. Nicholas Sequeira has come into the show. In our chat, and I appreciate that some other people apparently have asked about your stuff, but right now I need to focus on Michael's. If you want to reach me at Quoth the Raven lbr72@gmail.com and show me your work, and if I like what I see, then I'll be happy to bring you on as a guest. If you want to watch the show, that's great, but this is important. I have to handle promoting with Michael here, okay? Mm-hmm. I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. And Michael says he has been doing a lot of drawings to sell, which he has. He's been marketing a lot of that on his Facebook page and elsewhere. His Patreon page, which you can find a link to on that mlpeters.com page. So, it's not that he is raising money. So we want to do that. To try and get that helped out. So if you're interested in what you've seen of his artwork so far this evening, or his book a little bit, hopefully you can go to those sites and check that out. I apologize that Michael wasn't here to really discuss the things that we were going to discuss more openly with the book. It's a little more difficult with him typing and everything, but unfortunately the technology just wasn't there tonight. I feel bad about that. So again, our guest tonight was Michael Peters, and is Michael L. Peters, creator of Crescent City Magic. Let me see what I can do here. I'm trying to find his pages. There we go. And again, here's some of his artwork. This is for Conan. And this is and he wants me to share some of the work he's been selling a little bit more recently. So we're going to go ahead and do that in just a second here. There we go. He's been doing a movie monster set of titles and images. This is his artwork for Michael L. for Frankenstein's monster, rather. Elsa Lanchester is Bride of Frankenstein. These are ones that have mostly been sold. Yes, okay. Nosferatu. The Wolfman. Gilman from Creature from the Black Lagoon. The Conan set that I showed a little bit earlier was mostly drawn for a magazine about Robert E. Howard's Conan's creator, Robert E. Howard Two Gun Raconteur. So again, we will show a little bit more of these. This one doesn't look like it's sold. Did this one sell yet? Oh, yeah, it did. It is sell. Okay. This is the Mummy. And these are really well done pieces, as you can see. He's not sloughing off. So if you want to commission something from him of this nature or other things, that would be a good. You can see the kind of quality of work you're going to get from him. He says all these monsters have sold. So, that was the last one. So, we're going to go escape that for a minute. But you can see this kind of quality of work, and whether it's movie monsters or other things that he's doing, he can do other commissions. You've seen that he can do the superheroes. You've seen that he can do fantasy, Medusa, Conan. Yeah. Yeah. And again, it's like Michael says, it's not that his work doesn't sell, it's that the roof trouble is just really bad timing. John Norris says, amazing Invisible Man. So, I will go ahead and go back to the for sake of what John was talking about there. We'll go back to that real quick. That's what John is talking about, is that piece right there. So, there's a lot of stuff that you can go through and support Michael with. Again, we apologize that technical difficulties have prevented him from actually being live with us this evening. Hopefully, in the future, we can arrange something where he can be on live. He's a cool guy, very talented artist. So, we'd like to get him some more feedback. And so if you see anything you like there, you can go ahead and go to his pages. Let's see. What is this? He's got some more that haven't been inked yet. So we're going to show those in just a second. That shows you what his pencils look like before an inked thing there. So, and why do I not recognize what that is? I should. Characters. Geez, is it? It's not. It's London After Midnight. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think of the character's name as opposed to the movie. Right. Lon Chaney's the actor, but I was thinking, I don't know why I was thinking Hyde or something. It's not Mr. Hyde, but yeah, Edward C. Burke or whatever. But he does have a name. Um, it's not that important right now. Yeah, sort of a vampire. And yeah, it's been a while since I've seen the movie. It's okay. Um, we're gonna go ahead and cut that one out real quick and go to the next share screen, and that is for his volume 2, Waking the Witch, which is the next graphic novel. We're gonna show a little bit of these pages a little bit more. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, so I said I was like Edward Burke or something. Yeah, I was trying to remember, but it doesn't really matter, John. But thank you for trying to help us out there. He plays two roles in the film. He plays both the professor trying to resolve the crimes, or and then there's the monster as well. So, but anyway, um, this is from Crescent City Magic Volume 2. When is Volume 2 due out for orders, Michael? And this book will, both of these books, both Volume 1 and Volume 2, are black and white interiors with color covers. Mostly because I just don't think Mike has the time to do full colors on all that stuff for 100-page plus books by himself. Mm-hmm. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, Michael. Mm-hmm. These are pages that are before the lettering scripting has been placed on them, mm-hmm, that you're seeing. And before you ask, you can only get the book through Amazon or through Michael at mlpeters.com. It's not available through Diamond. Exactly why that is, well, that has to, it's not worth the discussion right now. We can discuss that another time. Okay, well, I think I'm showing a little bit. I mean, I don't want to give this is quite a bit of pages here. I mean, he's got quite a few on here. This is on his Facebook page, by the way. His Facebook page is you should be able to find him without any problem on Facebook. He says he's not sure how he'll publish this one. Maybe Amazon again, maybe something else. So there isn't necessarily a time scheduled yet for that slated yet because you haven't determined how you're going to go about it yet. Okay. Maybe he'll do a Kickstarter or not a GoFundMe, but Indiegogo to promote it and print it that way too. We'll see as time goes. And he's been working on this book for quite a while, years in fact. The more volumes that more copies of Volume 1 that sell, the faster you can get to Volume 2. These are some of the earliest pages. As you can see, the date on some of these are from 5 years ago. But he's been working on this for quite some time. Let me see how far down this goes to your more recent pages. Yeah, here we go. Here's some of your more recent stuff. So he's got 124 pages done, and that was of 3 weeks ago. So how many pages is this story going to be, do you think, Michael? 144? He says a second volume. He has about 8 more pages to draw in Volume 2. Then he needs to letter it and do a cover painting. So, you'll probably be done probably in, I don't know how long it takes you to letter. 8 more pages to draw. Yeah, it depends. But probably pretty soon then, depending on I mean, you got to do other projects and work on it between paying gigs, obviously. Yep. Right. So, because I'd say, what are you spending about 20 to 30 hours a page, pencils and inks, maybe? I don't know. How many hours a page do you think you're doing? Spending on the average page? Nope. Hold on a second. I just reposted his Michael's main page, his Facebook page, and his GoFundMe in the chat, so you guys can go visit those again. Mm-hmm. So as we know, this is the situation, and with his roof, and of course, we've always got creators who are dealing with disastrous scenarios like this. Part of the reason I chose to bring Michael on board is because of, as you can see, he is a top notch talent. Hold on a second, we've got something going on here. Yeah. So as you can see, that's showing up on the Facebook there. Hold on a second. Yeah. Well, um, it's okay. I'm not mad at you. These things happen. You were inking, and when a person's working on art, you want to get your art done. I understand. No, nobody's. I'm not mad at you. Okay, you're good. uh, we're gonna go ahead and stop sharing that stream for a moment, so that if he wants to say something a little more private, that will be left private. Because that what we were on his Facebook page showing it, so his messenger was popping up. But yeah, that being said, the main reason I brought him on was because we've got a guy who's got such amazing talent there, and obviously he does get people buying and commissioning, and it just happens to be a really bad situation with the roof that is beyond something really above and beyond a normal an issue here. So I'd really appreciate it if you could stop by some of those links I've put in the chat, and I'm going to go ahead and post the links again on the description for the video after the show is over, so that we're going to do that. Again, it's a shame that the video chat didn't work. In the future, we'll see what we can do about getting that resolved so we can have him on properly in the future. And it's not a question of whether or not he should have listened to me yesterday or whatever. It's about because I know other people who have done video on their phone through StreamYard, and and it works, and sometimes it's doing what he was having issues with. So 6 of one, half a dozen of another there. So it is what it is. Sometimes it just can't be helped. On the plus side, the Invisible Man sold. Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. What are you doing your commission prices at for stuff like that? Just so folks can get an idea. Michael? And if you want to reach Michael directly after the show to inquire about commissions or anything, this is either of the two addresses you can reach him at: mlpetersartist at either Yahoo or gmail.com. Okay, never mind. Yeah. Never mind. It went. Never mind, Michael. I got the sign. I was typing something else to get your banner there, so we could go ahead. But all those monster drawings that we showed a little bit earlier were going for $250 each, and it's worth that. So Yeah, 5 seconds, a little bit more than 5 seconds. Some of them lasted a good 15, 20 seconds, but still, you really weren't able to um, stay steady with it at all. And again, that who knows why? It could be the area you're in. It could be any number of reasons. It's not a. Yeah, it went through. I just didn't. I just didn't see it because I was in a different window at the moment when you posted it in there. That's all. And again, I'm going to go ahead and show the banner here. If you want to reach Michael, ask him any questions about Crescent City Magic, how to get the book, anything at all. You can either go to the websites and go to his links, or you can go via email at mlpetersartist@yahoo.com or mlpetersartist@gmail.com. Again, I wish we could have done a little bit better this evening and get a little bit more talk about the book. It is what it is. Probably what will happen is maybe I'll have a phone conversation with Michael down the road or something, and I can record that and do a podcast vocal wise or something. We'll figure it out. We'll get some more coverage on you, Mike, down the road. I promise. Is there anything else that you would like to discuss before we sign? You go ahead and check out for the evening, and we continue the show's other content. Yeah, he asks, maybe if it's his rural area. Yeah, it might be your rural area. I mean, Tawas up there in Michigan, where Ted Davies was having the same kind of problem with his phone. I mean, Tawas is, I mean, I don't know. Is all Michigan rural? It feels that way sometimes, I'm sure. If you're not in Detroit or Ann Arbor or something. Um, Bay City, Flint area, but I don't know. But yeah, it could be any number of things. We've given a good discussion, though, a good exposure for the book and for Michael tonight. I hope that folks will go ahead and take a look at his web pages or go visit his site. Again, I will go ahead and post some of the banners and some of the pages again real quick. Again, this is his homepage for his art store, mlpeters.com, where you can order his Crescent City Magic book. Go to his Patreon page, check out prints, commission drawings, other things that he's got. And it's got a link to his Facebook page. So you should be able to reach him without any problems in that respect. And he says he can't think of any more to talk about. We've covered a lot. Yeah, we only got maybe a couple more questions. Only got another one or two people in the chat tonight that have stick around. John, if you're here, John Norris, do you have any questions for Michael before he checks out? Or anybody else who's in the chat room? And the short page comics on that home page there, the shorts right there. Here's his some of the different stuff he's done there for. The Medusa story was in Negative Burn. Winter was the one that was in Heavy Metal. So there are some. It is a little bit nudity and stuff. Of course, Heavy Metal usually does have nudity in it, but it's not the end of the world. I'm not prude, by the way, but some people are. So, but it's there for people to look at. Okay. Well, we're going to go ahead and let you go tonight. And if there's nobody else to ask any questions from Michael right now, if there's other questions from Michael, you can either reach me after the show or reach Michael at that at those one of those two email addresses. I want to thank Michael for being our guest tonight, even though things did not pan out as well as we would have hoped as far as the technical side of things. I think we did give a good demonstration of what Michael has to offer, and that we can, and hopefully people will watch the show and go ahead and give him a little bit of a shout out, a little bit of a hand. If you're interested in buying his art, go ahead and talk to him. You can get something that's already made or something that he can commission for you. So oh wait, John's thinking. Tasteful nudity, it's art. Yes, it is. And John says he's thinking. It just came up, and he's gonna. But I think Michael's gonna call it Ignite, and oh, again, it pleasures mine to have anybody as a guest on the show. Despite the technical difficulties or anything else, I don't mind. Part of the reason for Quoth the Raven is to share what's out there in our industry that isn't being shared in the mainstream markets, so that people can see what else is out there, because we have such a negative social media and a negative comics media that just tends to reflect the same stuff over and over. And that's what we're going to get into a little bit shortly here. So again, you're welcome for being here, and we're happy to have you here. And if John, if you do have a question, he says he'll stick around. Again, I do apologize for some of our difficulties this evening. In the meantime, let me go ahead and put that back up to there for a minute. Again, this is mlpeters.com. Page if you want to go see that page. And let me see here. Okay. John does have a question. I just missed it. Michael, at what point do you start thinking about the space that will be needed for the speech bubbles when you're doing layouts of drawing? That's a good question, John. It does talk about that's a good technical question for artists in general. Just showing a little more of Michael's art as we go. Some of this is perhaps a little bit older, but it doesn't really matter. That's Arthur Pendragon. Michael answers pretty early on. He has a rough script that he comes up with when designing each page. I often change my script, making it better before the lettering, but I try to make it take roughly the same space. I think perhaps what John's wondering is because your work is so detailed, I think he might be wondering about the negative space versus the space that's taken up with detail work, detailed backgrounds and stuff like that. I guess he might be thinking, and that you'd save more time drawing if you had, or something, but it doesn't work that way, John. A lot of times, it's better to draw the whole page and get it done, and then put the lettering over the art if necessary. It's just a matter of trying to figure out the layout. And usually, I don't know if Michael does it this way. I can only speak for myself, but layouts. I don't know if he does an overlay or if he does a rough structure before he does his. Yeah. 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 He knows a lot of art will be covered up. That's inevitable. Yeah. Yeah. And John replies, "Cool." As somebody doesn't make that comics, he's worried. He's wondered about that. Okay. I think that's going to be the night for Michael. And I thank him again for being a guest this evening. And we're going to move on with the show because we still have questions and topics to discuss and reviews to discuss. We're already over an hour and a half in the show. So we want to kind of, it's not that I'm pushing everybody out the door, but we don't want to have the show be too long. But I thank Michael for coming tonight and being a guest on the show. And we'll get to moving on to the next program. You want to go ahead and say good night to everyone again, Michael? I think that's everything for the night. So we're going to go back to sharing a different screen. Mm-hmm. And Mike says good night to everyone and waves. We'll get you on Facebook and other places. And we're going to go back to the question that was asked to me earlier this evening from Alex. Have you seen the meme going around? You're in charge of DC Comics. What would you do? Well, what would you do? We're going to get into that for just a moment. But first, we're going to talk about a situation that's been going on with how the media has been covering some stuff with DC lately. And that is our lovely situation where the fans are worrying about how the industry's in a death spiral because DC Comics is going to make some books that are $7.99. Now I put this in here, and and there was a joke, not really a joke, but a slogan from DC years ago, holding the line at $2.99, because comics were going up to $3.99 a little while ago, a few years back, and now I'm just doing this thing, because people are freaking out over it, and Bleeding Cool, Bleeding Tool, Bleeding Fool, Cosmic Book News, Ethan Van Sciver, all these silly nincompoops are making a big deal out of this. But, I'm sorry, it's not that big of a deal. And I'll explain to you why. This is the fans' reaction. What the hell? What the fuck, DC? DC's response and my response is, whatever do you mean, what the fuck, fandom? We already did this back in 2016 with Legends of Tomorrow, which was an anthology book that was, I believe, 80 pages. It might have been a little bit smaller book. But it was $7.99. It featured Firestorm, Sugar and Spike, Metamorpho the Element Man, and the Metal Man. This was not their first foray into this type of format either. They're screaming at Marvel. You better not do this to us too, Marvel. Marvel's looking at them like, buddy, we already did. And it's nothing but reprints. At least DC is going to be giving you new material. And here's an example of what we're talking about. This is just in this new catalog, Marvel Tales featuring Doctor Strange, #1. It's all reprints. There's not a single new story in there. But their fan reaction is, well, why can't they do it like this? Why can't they do it like the Walmart 100-page giants that are $4.99? It's got 4 stories in it. It's got no original stories in it. Well, here's why. #1, Walmart guaranteed a set minimum exclusivity order, which ended back in March of this year. And we haven't seen, as far as I know, I haven't seen any newer books since March of this year. Correct me if I'm wrong. Anybody out there who sees this video, if there's other 100-page giants coming out since March, let me know. But I think that they were canceled because that order from Walmart was like $100K place order. And that's for all their stores, and not just Walmart, but also Sam's Club and other places. I believe that those were marketed, and nothing like that goes on in our diamond comic book industry. #2 reason is those were all 75% reprints of content that you already bought at $2.99, $3.99, $4.99 per story that are collected in those $4.99 books. So the production costs were minimized as they were already done and paid for. They were only paying for one story that was actually new content as a general rule of thumb for those $4.99 100-page giants. And when I explain this to fans, well, you see the reaction that the fandom gives me. But that's not fair. Why should I have to pay $7.99 for 80 pages of new content per issue? They should have to do things the way I want them to because I'm a fanboy and they wouldn't exist without me. Well, the truth is, I'm going to give you here's a reality punch for you. DC has been experimenting in this format for years now, and you fans have already proven it to be a viable, marketable format. I've been doing it, and not just DC, but DC at least has been doing it for the last 5 years, since 2013. Most notably with, like I showed you a few steps back, the one with Firestorm and Metamorpho and those guys, but also New Talent Showcase, which comes out once a year. Another 80-page anthology, $7.99. Came out one every year for the last 3 years. And people who are asking, where the new talent? Well, there's where the new talent's been at, is in that book. But again, DC is not the only company out there doing this. Remember this little book, Dark Horse Presents from 2011? 36 issues, 3 years of books from 2011 to 14. This is a true anthology series with various content and non-similar art styles that are not necessarily going to be all appealing to every reader. DC, by contrast, when they start putting these new books out, are going to be giving you content that's streamlined in terms of art styles, featuring the characters you already know and love. This version, which is all multiple styles and content, was a multiple-time Eisner and Harvey Award winner. That book was there for 3 years. The industry didn't die because it existed. Obviously, we're still here. So I'm going to ask you, are comics dying because DC is going to move forward with a publishing format that they've already used dozens of times in recent years to go build a proper line of that format featuring their primary properties for the first time ever? Are we seriously even entertaining the very notion that the comics market is even remotely affected by this activity? Of course it's not. This is status quo, folks. This is status quo. Nothing's changing. Your industry's not dying because we're going to go to $7.99 for some of the books. It's not the entire DC publishing line. Pardon me for the camera. It's not in the right spot. There we go. There's nothing to panic. The sky isn't falling. What's going to happen is you're going to have a certain number of set titles that are going to be a larger count, page count, larger prestige format, better production values at a higher price, that are going to be featuring your primary characters, whether that's Superman, Batman. And when I say Superman, I mean the original Superman, Clark Kent, the original Bruce Wayne, presumably Diana for Wonder Woman if they're going to do Wonder Woman, Alan Scott or Hal Jordan for Green Lantern, whatever they're going to do. Maybe Barry Allen or Wally West for the Flash, I don't know. But that's what they're going to do. And it's not going to be their entire line of product. It's just going to be a part of that product. Okay? Let me see where my thing went. Here we go. Next question people, though, is asking me is, what about the 5G? And as you can see, there are 4 different characters here shown. The Green Lantern that you're seeing in the top left corner just came out this week. We're going to talk about that book in just a little bit. That's Sojourner Joe Mullein. And I think that's how it's pronounced. But she is a new character for Green Lantern, comes out of the DC Young Animal product. And I'll talk about that in our reviews. The Batman that you're seeing is one of the new Batman characters. It's Luke Fox. For those of you who don't know Luke Fox, that's Lucius Fox's son. You might have seen him in the Batwoman TV series as the geeky tech guy in Wayne Manor. He in the comics, he is his own separate Bat character. Superman, that is Jonathan Kent. That is the son of Superman that has been introduced recently and brought up to maturation, adulthood. And that Wonder Woman, and I can't remember the name of the character for the life of me. That is not actually Wonder Woman. That is a new character. Geez, I'm drawing a blank on the name, and I apologize for that. Let me see if I can find that real quick. Nope, not getting any help at all with that. Oh, bummer. Let's see. It's being silly with me since I've done so much. Okay. It's Elysian. Elysian. Elysian is the character's name. So that's another new character. And these are characters that are going to probably be brought into the regular DC universe, while the main characters are going to be going to something else. And that something else is called DC Black Label. Now, people are getting mad about that. And, why? These 5G characters are going to have cheaper books at $3.99. My era of DC is moving to Black Label at $7.99. That's not fair. Nobody even likes these characters. Why, DC? Why? One, your characters are doing reasonably well, no matter how they, given the fact that these characters have not been marketed very well or marketed at all, to be dead honest with you, through DC. These characters have done well so far. Two, your era, they're not your characters. They never were. And I have to ask you all, did the Golden Age DC fans throw this much of a hissy fit back in 56 when the Silver Age was launched? I wasn't around. I wasn't born yet. I don't know. Maybe you older fans out there watching can tell me. I don't think it was. I was even too young to remember the hissy fit that started in the 80s, in 85 with the Crisis of Infinite Earths. That, what we could argue, started the Bronze Age modern reboots that have gone on for the last 30 plus years in the industry. I was only 13 back then. And I just don't remember that kind of craziness going on back then. I don't see it. Was it because we didn't have internet trolls back then that I just didn't see it when I was younger? I don't know. But it needs to stop. A few more points. I think there's something missing here. There is. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Nope. Okay. Apparently, I don't know what happened to 3 and 4, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. I don't remember the backlash from fandom over alternate versions of these characters over the years, and we've had plenty of them. The DC Tangent line back in 97, for example. Nobody was threatening to kill Todd DeZago the way I've seen people threatening Dan DiDio or threatening other people who work at DC, because he turned the Flash into a teenage girl with light-based powers instead of speedster abilities. Nobody was going after Dan Jurgens because he turned the Atom from a guy who could shrink to atomic size to a Captain Atom Superman archetype. Nobody was threatening violence against James Robinson for making Green Lantern a female version of the Spectre with the power to raise the dead for a brief period to let the spirit complete last tasks to find peace before moving on to the other side. So I'm going to ask you all, if these were your new 5G versions instead of Luke Fox or Elysian or Sojourner Moline, would I still be seeing this kind of irrational, overly emotional response from the fandom out there? Or was it because that was an alternate additional universe that you only got one-shot stories from instead of an entire imprint of ongoing titles, potentially threatening the primary line, primary in quotations, that you didn't throw a hissy fit back then? And you can see what I'm going to say, what I think the fan's going to tell. And they say they don't see any plan. Don't see me with a plan to fix DC. I'd like to see you try. Okay. That brings us back to Alex's question. And Alex's question earlier was, that meme that's been around. If you ran DC, what would you do? Well, let's say I am in charge. Let's just say for shits and giggles. Here's what I do. Number one, I purge the management and editorial groups. Now, when I say purge, I'm not just going to fire everybody, go in there with a death ray. I'm going to interview everybody, give them exit interviews, figure out what I want, who I want to keep, who I'm not going to keep, and why. I'm not going to sit here and go through, well, I'm going to get this guy and that person, fired. No, I'm not doing that, because when you run a company, that's not how you do business, folks. So, I'm going to have to sit down and talk to these people and figure out what is actually going on and why before I make those kind of decisions of who I'm keeping and who I'm not. 2, purge your creative team rosters. Establish your rules as to the hiring process for creators. Now, that's an important one. There's a lot of creators out there who are just overused, not just at DC, but they're at other companies at the same time, particularly writers. I've mentioned this before in past episodes of the show. So those guys are going to get, I'm not going to just immediately show them the door and say, hey, you're out of here. But, I'll let them finish an arc of stories or whatever. But there's going to be a turnaround. There's going to be a turnover, and I'm going to get new talent in. Maybe that's old guard guys that haven't been around for a while. Maybe that's independent people from the old guard independent scene that never got a shot at DC before. Maybe I'll give them a turn. There's other people. There's plenty of people. Don't listen to Dan DiDio when he goes to retailer pro summits and tells the retailers, we got the best page rates and we can't find anybody new to bring into to the company. That's a load of crap. 3, purge redundant character books and spinoffs that aren't selling to a set minimum sales level. Well, I'm not going to say what a set minimum sales level is, because I don't know what that would be. That would be something I'd have to determine with my superiors at AT&T Time Warner, number 1. Number 2, I have to figure out what books they want to keep and not keep, because it's not just going to be my call. This is something that is a corporate decision based on not just what the comics are doing, but what has already been licensed and marketed for film and television rights and what they're going to do on that scale too, even though I think the comics should come first, and I'm going to talk about that in a bit. I have to keep that in mind. So, but yeah, I'm gonna get rid of a lot of the redundant stuff, what I feel is redundant. I'm not going to start naming books specifically. I don't think that's fair to anybody right now. Again, you don't go in with the death ray. You take each individual title at face value, and you examine it and you evaluate it. 4, we establish different levels of product for different age audiences that can appeal to all audiences. We establish markets within the comics retail community so that retailers understand how to market said content and to which audiences said content should be marketed to and why. What exactly does that mean? What it means is we need to have a marketing team, and this is not just at DC, this is at every company. When we had good marketing people, like the late Carol Kalish at Marvel, she went around directly to stores in person, not just at conventions, and she communicated directly with the retailer, listened to them, found out what their situation was. She helped mentor bringing in cash registers in the comic shops back in the 80s. We need that kind of mentality and interactivity with the marketing team and the companies with the retail community in the diamond market. And we haven't had that for years. There's been a major, and it's not that the marketing people at DC or Marvel don't try at all. It's that the corporate structure isn't invested, in my opinion, in having that kind of interactivity as they were back in the 80s. And that's because at that time, in the 80s, we were just starting out with the direct market, and they had to build it. Now they think, well, it's established, you don't need to it. Well, I'm sorry, it's kind of like growing a garden. You have to keep tilling the ground and resetting everything up every season. When you're a farmer or you're doing any type of growing of plants, and this is what we're doing. We're growing a market. It's the same principles. You have to keep doing the same things. You can't just say, well, it's there, I don't need to worry about it anymore. And that's, in my opinion, is a lot of what has caused problems in the market for the last 25, 30 years. Five, reestablish a proper publishing schedule and rebuild the buffer of a minimum of 3 completed issues in the can before a solicitation of a series or issue. New ongoings do not get solicited until the first story arc, a maximum of 6 issues, is completed. Now, I'm not the only one who's brought that particular thing up. Other creators who have attacked this meme, Jamal Igle, Chris Claremont, Louise Simonson, others have talked about this either online or in person at shows. Because this is not the first time that the DC, you're in charge of DC, what would you do? Meme has gone around. This is like the 10th or 12th time in the last 3 years. But people are always asking me. So, and that particular thing is something that Jamal pretty much said the same thing. So I'm going to give Jamal credit for mentioning it. And, we do need to do that so that we can get books that are properly in the house and ready to go to press before you ever even solicit the book, is how I look at it. That way, you shouldn't have a problem getting your books out on time, instead of having books that are delayed and because of whatever reasons. I mean, it could be health reasons based on an artist. It could be, someone was working and then they got some other assignments, or they got pulled away by something like Jeff Johns and his Shazams are delayed months and months and months. Why? Because he's over in TV land working on the Berlantiverse for the Crisis crossover and his Stargirl series, and he just doesn't have time to do a comic book. It's the truth. And he should be completely out of comics right now and focusing on TV, in my opinion. But that's my opinion. Other people will beg to differ, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. 6, bring back the multiverse by having imprints of alternate universe characters as regular ongoing, such as the Tangent line that I previously mentioned. Only one multiverse crossover event per every 3 years. Now, the reason I'm doing that is because, frankly, I think that there's a lot of creativity and imagination in those alternate realities. I think that Grant Morrison did a hell of a job on the Multiversity series that he developed a couple of years ago now, that has established different DC universes. And if we're going to have an expansive line of titles featuring the same character tropes, then at least do it differently that way if we have to, instead of having them all in the same context and bumping into each other. That way fans can say, well, if I want to read Prime, I want to read Earth 2, I want to read Tangent Universe, I want to read, Morrison verse, John's verse, Snyder verse, whatever, Bendis verse, whatever, doesn't matter. We can do that and not have an excessive amount of redundancy, because there'll be different structures per universe if we do it right. 7 is bring back a line that features nothing but done in one short stories. Make them $1.99 on newsprint as gateway titles to the characters, and market that to the general public, non-comic stores, as well as comic shops, to establish a general societal interest in the characters that will not require a lifestyle change. In other words, becoming a collector or hardcore fan. What does that mean? What that means is, when I was a kid in the 70s, a lot of comics were self-contained stories. A lot of them weren't. They would continue from issue to issue. My parents were smart enough to make sure I didn't get the issues that were continued, as a general rule of thumb, because there wasn't any guarantee on the newsstand that you were going to get the next issue. And I think that's a big part of what hurt the newsstand market back in the 70s and 80s, in addition to the price points not being enough for newsstands to be satisfied. That led us to the creation of the direct market in the late 70s, early 1980s. Comics are supposed to be impulse purchases without further commitment. That's what they were originally when they were brought up back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. It wasn't until about the mid 70s that we started doing this diehard collectability thing where you had to have, just keep buying forever and ever and ever. And I'm not saying there's something wrong with that necessarily, but if you want to get new audiences, you're going to have a cheap, affordable entryway book. Then once you're interested in comics, if they want to get into the more expensive stories, the ones that are going to be better quality production, longer stories, whether it's serialized format at $3.99, whether it's going to be a graphic novel collection or an original graphic novel, it doesn't matter. We have to have the gateway product. We don't have one right now from Marvel and DC. We've had them in the past, but they have not been marketed properly. And again, that goes back to what I was saying about needing marketing people that go to these retailers and explain to them why these books have to be marketed and how to market them and to who to market them to, so that they know how to do this, so that they can get new audiences into their stores. Mm-hmm. And then again, we also want to out in the general public. We want them in our drugstores and our supermarkets again, so that the general public knows that the characters are still there outside of the occasional, I won't even say occasional because we've got a lot of superhero movies and superhero TV shows now that we didn't have just a few years ago. But nonetheless, a lot of people are looking at it as, well, I already got my fix from the TV and movie scene. I don't need a comic unless it's affordable. And to them, well, I pay $8 a ticket for a 2-hour movie that's completely self-contained versus $3.99, $4.99 for serialized. I'm not going to get it for their kid, but maybe $1.99 that's a self-contained without any further commitment. They might go for that. 8. Either use properly generated character story Bibles that exist already. Using an example would be the story Bibles for the Batman animated series from '92, or the other DC animated series Bibles for the characters that were generated by Paul Dini and Bruce Timm and those guys. And I'm not using those. I'm going to hire creators to generate new ones that will be adhered to, even if that means a hard reboot of the DCU again through some event like another crisis or whatever. I don't want to have to do that particularly, but if I have to, I will. I think there's an easier way to do that and structure it within a context so that we don't have to do a hard reboot. I think we can do a soft reboot and get it done right without hurting anybody or ticking anybody off. 9. Pardon me. Stop the nonsense of trying to eliminate the floppy or serialized format comic in favor of trades. As I said just a little bit ago, comics are meant to be affordable, disposable means of entertainment for a mass audience, not a boutique product for niche audiences. That doesn't mean we eliminate trades. It means we structure different comics levels, and we market and trade the different levels as different subgroups, and we teach audiences, whether that's our retailers, whether it's the readers, the benefits of supporting both. That's not an easy task. I'm not saying it's easy. It's not going to happen overnight. If I was doing this is not something that I could just go in to DC and it's done. This is years of development, years of working it out, because it takes that long, because it's been that many years that we've been screwing it up and we got a lot of stuff to fix. And nobody in this business is going to be able to do it overnight, least of all me, but anybody. 10. Stop the nonsense of hiring talent based upon minority appropriations. The fact is, we have plenty, and I do mean plenty, of Black, Hispanic, Islamic, Asian, LGBTQ representation in the comic scene. What we do not have is proper market support for those creators and properties because we've buried them beneath a mountain of redundant characters and redundant books featuring the same characters and books written by the same writers over and over. And what equal representation to a lot of people not really means is why ain't there a Black Bendis? Why isn't there a sorry, I thought I had that up there. Why isn't there these superstars that are the same, that are not minorities? And the reality is, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, certain people who get into a certain level of success get greedy. And it's easier to fall into a trap as an editor or management. Well, this guy's successful. We'll just keep going with what works. With what works. We know this worked. We'll keep going with it. You can't do that because what happens is stuff gets overused, overrated, and you create discontent and malcontent within your creative community and within the fan audience. Because even if we like a certain given creator, when they're putting out too many books at once, you're going to start to resent that creator, and you're going to say, hey, isn't there anybody else? And there are other people out there, and that's what we need to be doing. And so if we're going to do diversity doesn't mean percentage Black, percentage Islamic, percentage women, percentage this, percentage that. What it means is stop giving the same people who already have their share of work more if there's other people out there who are equally qualified who can do as good a job. And there are people out there, no matter what Dan DiDio thinks. And it's our job, and it would be my job if I was running DC, to find those people and hiring editors that are willing to do that instead of favoring the same people that they happen to get along with and like. That means a different structure, and that structure for me would be restricting creators to a certain amount of work that they can do for DC. And if they're going to work, if they want to work for other companies, if they're working, I might let them have one creator-owned series at Image or one creator-owned series at some other publisher. But if they're doing multiple creator-owned books at Image, or one's at Image, one's at Dark Horse, one's at IDW, one's at Boom, one's over, elsewhere, they're not coming to DC at all because they've got their fair share on the market. That's how I look at it. Other people are going to disagree with me, and that's fine. But my feeling is the way to create diversity is to give the proper controls on that front. $11. Reestablish the Vertigo, Helix, and other imprints for non-superhero titles. Try to get the essential core editorial people back from those imprints or hire similar-minded editors. DC really screwed things up, in my opinion, when they basically ousted Karen Berger and then Shelley Bond and tried to kill the Vertigo line. I'm not completely privy to everything that led to those decisions, but I know there's a lot of factors in it. I don't know if it was all personal or anything like that, but it was bad, and it has hurt DC Comics, even though they're trying to do other imprints like Joe Hill's comics, horror comic line, and this new Black Label stuff. I think we need to be reestablishing what worked before in that respect. There's a reason why Karen Berger was there for 30 years and why she did what she did. And, there's a reason why certain other editors that should still be there aren't. And, like I said before, I'm going to purge a lot of management and editorial people out. Well, a lot of the people that kind of caused the conflict that led to those people's departures are the ones I'm going to let go. And I'm going to invite those other people back and see if they'll come back. If they won't, then I'll have to find someone else that's of similar mindset. Mm-hmm. But, that stuff I think belongs. And we need to restructure DC to do that properly. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that DC under Dan DiDio and company aren't trying to do it in their own way. They are. But I don't think people are happy with that. I think a lot of people are very I don't know. I'm trying to find the right word in my head. They're not happy with it. They're not pleased with the way that went down with Karen. They're not pleased with the way Vertigo kind of went to hell after Karen and Shelley left. So I would have to be an examination internally for me if I was taking over to see why things went the way they did and see if I could bring it back or not. 12. Build a proper online show to market and showcase products and talents. I think there is a DC blog thing or something like that online, but I'd like to put an hour show out there every week dedicated to not like a podcast necessarily. I mean, it could be like a podcast, but yeah, I don't know if you guys remember Sci-Fi Buzz on Sci-Fi Channel back in the 90s, but I want to do something like that where we interview the creators and talk about the books that are coming out and why we're doing these books, and do kind of an interpersonal thing so that people can watch on a week-to-week basis, and get to know the creators that work for the company, get to know the editors, get to know what's going on, even if it's only on a superficial level, to try and generate buzz and appreciation for both the properties and the creators involved in them. I don't think they have that. We have that really that much. I think what I've seen on DC, sometimes Dan DiDio is talking, sometimes Jim Lee is talking, but usually it's very limited in scope of actually talking to the rest of the talent rosters. And I think that's something that needs to be corrected and properly addressed. Not just for DC. I think any company would be wise to consider looking into doing something akin to that. 13. We establish that the publishing arm is what comes first and that the other media, film, television, video games, are the ancillary product. The comics have to be the driving force that propels the intellectual properties, not to be subservient to altered versions meant for other media platforms. What does that mean? Well, what it means is we've got all these wonderful movies, we've got all these wonderful TV shows that people are watching, and millions of people. And some of them are loosely based on our comics. And in other cases, we're doing comics that are based on the TV shows now as alternative product, because those fans of those audiences that are watching these TV shows, that are watching these movies, come to see the comic product, and it's not the same thing. And they're, well, what do? Well, we make new comics that are based on the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or we make new comics based on the Berlanti-verse for DC. If you're going to do that, that's fine. But if you're going to do it, then the Berlanti-verse is another multiverse thing for DC. And that's cool. Make it its own imprint. And you can put Berlanti and Johns and whoever else you're going to put over there. That's great. But that's not the primary line. And it can't be your primary line. The other thing is, we can't have film and television superseding what the comic book people are doing. And what I mean by that is, the reason back in 92 why the Death of Superman story came out was because the Lois and Clark TV show on ABC told them they couldn't do what they originally planned, which was have the wedding of Lois and Clark. They wanted that for their TV show. So that left them in the lurch, and then they came up with what they came up with. And that's not how we got to do things. The comics are what came first. The comics have to be our driving force. If we don't let it be our driving force, and we let the film and the television and the video games take force, then what happens is you get fans of that version of the content, not versions of the comics. And when you go to your conventions, what do you see? You see Nurse Harley Quinn, who looks like she belongs on porn somewhere. You see, Suicide Squad Harley Quinn instead of which again now reflects the comics because that's the popular version now. Is that, and there's a lot of old school fans who don't like that. It's the same sort of thing with other characters. So it's not that you can't have those alternate versions, but you have to make sure if you're going to market those alternate versions that people know those are the alternate versions, and you got to market your primary title first and foremost. Last thing for me to do if I'm running DC is set up an exit strategy so that I can step away and have the next people come in when the time comes. What does that mean? What it means is I'm not going to do this overnight. If I was going to ever be able to do it, it would take years. And in the process of that time, markets are going to change, other things are going to change. So if for some reason AT&T Time Warner isn't satisfied, I have to set up an exit strategy so that I can bow out and have the next people come in and have a smooth transitional phase. That's just common sense stuff for me as a business person. That's all that is about. Whoops. Now, that's done with my rant for the night. So we're going to get on to reviews now, okay? I think that's what you guys want to see anyway. So let's just go ahead and get into that real quick. Last Sunday night, I saw Ad Astra. Brad Pitt film came out in September. The writers were James Gray and Ethan Gross. The director was James Gray, starring Brad Pitt, Tommy Lee Jones, Ruth Negga, Liv Tyler, and Donald Sutherland. The genre is science fiction drama. But it's about, well, a lot of people didn't like this film because they thought it was going to be one thing that it wasn't. Brad Pitt stars as an emotionally detached astronaut who was assigned a mission to seek out his father, who was a famous astronaut in his own right, played by Tommy Lee Jones, in order to stop a cascading wave of energy pulses from destroying all life on Earth. The thing about this film is that it is not a cowboy shoot 'em up, Star Wars, Star Trek adventure storyline. It's psychological drama is what it is. It's more along the lines of 2001, 2010. It's very. I don't consider it slow paced, but a lot of people who went to see this movie probably would. But it's a very psychological thing, and not necessarily a science fiction story in the sense that you could tell this story without any of the space tropes. You could tell, this is about a story about a guy whose father abandoned him, and he tried to become like his father, trying to understand why his father abandoned him. And then when he confronts his father kind of admits, "Yeah, I was a douchebag, and I don't give a damn about you." And I hate to say that, but that's what's in the movie there. And unfortunately, the movie was mismarketed and misrepresented a little bit because in the trailer, one of the biggest things you see is the moon base moon buggy shootout, and that's like maybe 2 minutes to 4 minutes out of a movie that's like over 2 hours. So and there's a few other minor exciting, so quote unquote exciting scenes, but it is a psychological thriller type thing as to who and what the lead character is supposed to be being. And I think a lot of people underqualify it as a result. I enjoyed it okay. I'd recommend it for fans of 2001 and 2010 and Gattaca and films like that. But it's only like a 3 out of 5 star film. It's not 4 or 5. There's just not enough stuff about other characters besides Pitt and Tommy Lee Jones's characters. Not enough. There's stuff alluded to, but not quite enough to make us care about the rest of it to understand why Pitt Pitt's character chooses to do the things he does. Our next thing is comics, and this week I bought Family Tree #1 for $3.99. Publisher is Image Comics. Writer is Jeff Lemire. Artist is Phil Hester. Genre is fantasy and horror. It was released yesterday, November 13th, 2019. What it's about is Loretta Hayes is a hardworking single mom with a smart-assed teenage kid, son, and a young daughter to support. She has no idea of the danger that's coming to destroy her family when her youngest inexplicably starts to display a horrific change. Her arm begins to transform into a tree branch, and another branch begins to grow out of her back. Now she must fight against all odds to protect her family, and maybe against her family as well. I gave it another 3 for 5 stars, probably because Jeff Lemire is one of those guys who has way too many books out at the same time, in my opinion, and I'm kind of burned out on him a little bit. So, I'll be fair. It could deserve a 4, but because I'm a little bit fed up with seeing Jeff, I knocked it down a little bit. Here's some of the artwork. And this is where the first scene shows that she's starting to get this little itch, rash on her arm. And that's where the tree branch stuff starts to grow. And then later you can see the sprout coming out of the back of her spine. I do love the shadow design there by Phil Hester, making her look like a little leaf from the branch sticking out, and then her body. I think that is a really nice design. It kind of gives a nice symbolic structure there, because she's a young child, a young person, and she's kind of feels alone and scared, like a soul leaf or whatever. And I think that's a really well done artistic design there. Here's the book. I would recommend it for 16 and up. I didn't put the recommended age group on that particular book. There's some swearing in it. There's some other things in it that I think are a little more geared towards a teenage audience. I'm really not a fan of the son. He's too generic. There's a little more growth of the arm as it keeps turning into a branch. And here's some of the people out to kill the kid. They're just like cultists or whatever they are. I don't know, but they're out to basically kill the girl for whatever reasons. It hasn't been explained yet. They've been run off the road and crashed, and they're out to kill the little girl. And they swipe the girl, and someone shoots the guy that's holding the mom hostage there at stuff, and it turns out that it's apparently the mother's grandfather. And so there might be a little bit of secret stuff going on that they already knew that the girl was going to do this, and we don't know yet. It kind of leaves you on a little cliffhanger. John Norris at Astra is definitely thinking person's sci-fi. I don't know about thinking person's sci-fi. There's different kinds of thinking. I mean, this is like I said, it's a psychological thing. It's not. You do have to have your brain turned on. You do have to look at the metaphorical analogies between what's going on with both the son and the father characters. But it's not it doesn't have the big psychological trope. It's very nuanced just to them, and I think that's part of why a lot of people are kind of iffy about it, because neither character is necessarily all that sympathetic in the film. So that I think that makes a difference. But yeah, that is a good point there, John. And our next book for reviews is the aforementioned Far Sector #1 for $3.99 from DC Comics. Writer is N.K. That's Nora K. Jemisin. And the artist is Jamal Campbell. Science fiction superhero genre. Again, released just yesterday, November 13th, 2019. And what it is about is a new Green Lantern who's at the city enduring, a metropolis at the edge of the universe, that hasn't seen a violent crime in over 500 years until now. It's up to rookie Green Lantern Sojourner Joe Moline. I think that's how it's pronounced. I'll have to get in touch with Nora and make sure I know how to pronounce that in the future. To solve the murder before civilization tears itself apart. It's a science fiction murder mystery that pays homage to and harkens to the Green Lantern comics' roots in proper science fiction, and to the concept's past projects, specifically Green Lantern Mosaic, which was out in the early 90s. I forget, I don't remember who wrote Mosaic off the top of my head. I know that Cully Hamner was the artist, but I can't remember the name of the writer. While blazing a new trail and introducing a new character. I recommend it for 14 and up, fans of GL Green Lantern Mosaic and fans of Philip K. Dick. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm very biased on this one because I'm a big fan of Nora K. Jemisin to begin with. And I've been waiting for this book for seems like a year and a half. Maybe a little bit longer even. I've been waiting for Nora to get into comics for a long time, and so I was very, very pleased with it. Like I said, I recommended for 14 and up, but then I realized it's going to have to be for higher up than that because the book is recommended. I don't know if you can read that or not. It's blurry, but it's ages 17 and up. And I understand why. There is a lot of swear words, and there's other things in it that as a little joke for my friend John. Anyway, he's heading out for tonight. Thank you for watching, John. I appreciate it as always. But anyway, Far Sector. There's some swearing. There's some other things in it. There's some issues in it that I can see where some of it might be a little bit considered for more adult audiences. And knowing Nora's writing style, I could see where that would be why they would target that. So, if you're an adult and you have a kid that's in the 14 to 17-year-old range, yeah, go ahead and look at it. If your kid's 14 wants to look at it or she wants to look at it, take a look at it. You're an adult, supervise them a little bit. I think a 14-year-old can handle it, but I can understand where they've marketed it that way. So this character, however, because it is targeted for ages 17 plus, that's why I said earlier in the 5G, I don't think she's going to be part of the general stuff that's going to be geared towards all audiences for that very reason. I'm going to show you a little bit more of the artwork for that book now. This is the first 2 pages, I believe. Let me check real quick. Second and third page, pardon me. Jamal Campbell's art is just really, really well done. Beautiful stuff. Really enjoyable looked at it. I don't know what he's doing, how he's working on this. I don't know if he's doing digital or if he's doing, there's got to be, part of it's got to be digital just based on how the lettering fonts and stuff are done, but I don't know how much of the rest is computer generated or how much of it is painted or whatever, because it looks very painterly, and it's just a really well drawn, really well produced art on this. Here's another page where she's just left a meeting with all the city councilmen, so to speak, and she's not particularly fond of them. And she's sort of having a confrontation with one of them that is done there. Again, I would recommend. I gave 4 out of 5. A little bit biased on that, but again, I do recommend that. Now, people asked me earlier in the question section, why don't I talk about other comics that I buy this on a week-to-week basis? Well, I'll tell you why. Here's what I bought already. Triage, which we've already discussed once in the previous episode. Cosmo the Mighty Martian, number 1, which is a new volume of the same stuff. I just talked about Cosmo a couple weeks back with the last volume. So to me, I'm kind of repeating myself, and I don't want to necessarily do that. That being said, I realize that there might be new people watching the show on a week-to-week basis. So in the future, if you guys want to see me talk about extra episodes or extra issues of the same thing, I can do that. But people need to let me know if that's what you want to see. Okay? So if you want to see that, email me there on the bottom, right there. Lewis Brett Raven, Quoth Raven, LBR72@gmail.com. And I'll address that in the future. Now, that being said, I think we got one more thing to talk about before we call it a thing, and that is the holiday sale. It runs tomorrow until December 12th. I'll be taking commissions. I'll be selling original sketches, art books, poster prints, and much, much more. You can go to eBay and find me at www.ebay.com USR user Lewis Brett Raven. That's one place you can find me. You can find me at Facebook, at facebook.com, Lewis.BrightRaven. Apparently one of my... There we go. Or you can reach me at the Quoth Raven LBR72@gmail.com and ask at holiday sale. We'll go and quickly talk about some of the stuff that's for sale. This is some of the stuff that's for sale. Wingman, The Art of Lewis Brett Raven, Volume 1. Normally this is $10 plus shipping and handling. The holiday sale price is $7 with shipping, or $15 with a personal sketch inside the book, labeled, marked, signed to you for $15 plus shipping. We have a Walking Dead Michonne print, 8.5 by 11 or 11 by 14 sizes. The normal pricing is $15 and $20 plus shipping. The holiday sizes are $10 and $15. We have a Dino Head print, a Chinese Dragon color print. Again, these are normally these are 10 for the 8.5 by 11 or 15 by the 10, 11 by 14. They're only $5 and $10 each, shipping and handling, plus shipping and handling, rather. These are limited print runs. I only printed like 25 copies, maybe 50 copies. I think it's 25 though per image per size. So very limited runs. Again, got more Akira, the Mighty Thor, and the Zombie print. I'll let you take a quick look at those as well. I'll be right back. More print. Sorry about that. I had to take a break for a second. More prints available include two Star Trek prints, Kirk and McCoy, 8.5 and 11 by 14s available. Normal price $10 to $15. Holiday price $5 to $10. Again, limited print runs on all of these. Also a black and white T-Rex print. Those are printed very much looking like the pencils styles that they are. And you would pay me by PayPal at either one of these two addresses if you're interested in that. And you can ask about those any of these items at either one of these two addresses, willisbrett@yahoo.com or Quoth the Ravens LBR72 at gmail.com. Subject matter holiday sale. I have other stuff for sale as well that you can reach. You can look on eBay. Again, this is the address. You can keep up to date on more stuff that's going to be made available at Facebook. .com, Lewis.WrightRaven. And the best way to reach me is for the show really is the Gmail address, Quoth the Raven LBR72 at gmail.com, subject holiday sale. Now, before anybody asks, I know some people are going to watch this and say, well, you just did an hour and a half show promoting Michael and telling us to buy stuff from Michael and support Michael. Now you come asking us to buy stuff from you. What's going on? I'll tell you right now. If you need to make a choice between Michael and me, pick Mike. He needs it more than I do right now. He needs his roof repaired. And just for full disclosure, I'm getting my roof repaired too, but I have house insurance, so mine's covered. He doesn't. So I know how much it's costing him, and that's why I brought him on the show, among other reasons. So if you're going to make a pick, and say, well, I can only afford one thing or whatever, you know, if you want to spend big bucks or whatever the situation might be, I don't know if he's got prints for sale or not, but all you can do is ask. But it is what it is, and so there is that. But the holiday sale is for other people as well who are maybe not interested in Michael stuff, or you just want to support me. If you do, that's great. If you don't, I respect that too. But thank you for watching for that. And I'll give you more information on the holiday sale next week. And next week we will have another guest. And he will not have the video problems, I promise. He's been on other video chats. I've been with him before, and he should not have that problem, and we'll make sure we don't before we bring him in. That should be Mr. Nick Cagnetti, Pink Lemonade. And I talked about Pink Lemonade last week on the show, but we're going to bring Nick in, and we're going to talk a little bit more about his projects and some other topics as well. And we're going to try and get a couple more guests. I want to try and get a forum next week if we can. But if we can't, it'll be me and Nick, unless something comes up. And if it does, well, then we'll see what happens. But I hopefully will not have to go through this type of technical difficulties again. And I apologize to Michael, and I apologize to the audience for watching. I know that was annoying to some of you. Both Michael and I were very frustrated ourselves, but we got through it, and I hope we entertained, and I hope that we've been here almost 3 hours, so I really appreciate you watching. Those of you who have watched, and those of you who will watch. So, that being said, whoops, sorry about that. Got one more thing to do before we close out the night. And that is to say adieu. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week.